See me. Well, hello, and welcome. Welcome, guys, to this very special Meet the Miniaturist edition. Say hello in the chat box if you are just joining us. Let me know if you can hear me. Make sure the sound is working. Hi, guys. Welcome. And also tell me where you are joining from. Love to see where you guys are coming in from. Also, tell me if you are new to one of my Meet the Miniaturist broadcasts. Hi, Central Florida. Hi, Virginia. Hi, Barry. Good to see you. Hi, guys. New York City. Hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Cinda, Barbara. Great to see everybody is joining. We're just going to wait another minute or so before we start. Make sure everybody can join. Definitely say hello if you're just joining in the chat box. Hi, Mary. Good to see you. Hey, Flora. And also let me know. Hi, Joyce. Let me know if you're new. You're not. Faith is not new. Welcome back, Faith. Good to see you. All right. All right. We're just going to wait another half a minute. So folks are still joining. We're going to wait another minute. Hi, Cindy. Good to see you. Look at this. This is like welcome home week. This is awesome. All right. All right, we're going to make another half a minute, and then I'm going to start with some housekeeping before we bring on our special guests. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping. And I know you're still joining. If you're just joining, tell me where you're joining from. Say hello in the chat box. The chat box will be open throughout this session. Please use it to say hello to each other. Make sure you're on talking to everyone so people can see that you are chatting with everyone. Just a little housekeeping before we begin, but actually I do want to first start off by saying that I do want to take a moment to reflect on this sad day in our history. I'm certainly thinking about the families affected by what happened 21 years ago and continue to be affected. May those folks who we lost, may their memory be a blessing. So yeah, but I wanted to take a moment to reflect on that. But thank you all for joining this Meet the Miniaturist web stream live. So a couple of things on housekeeping. If you don't know me, I'm Darren. I'm an enthusiastic, unapologetic miniaturist. I love the world of tiny and I promote it every chance I can get, but I also sell miniatures. And so I do have a sale coming up next weekend. I'm going to put a link in the chat box here. This is a link to all of my social media. Follow me there, find out what's going on. So I have an estate sale happening next week. I have a patrons club if you'd like to join and join the patrons club and contribute to my efforts as I promote this miniatures world. And I have a special event coming up Thursday night, which patrons club members get to attend. You get to attend some of these exclusive events and things like that, which is one of the benefits of being a patron. And then finally, I do have some Meet the Miniaturist episodes coming up, so definitely, if you're not already on my mailing list, head over to my website or head into the links that I put into the chat box and sign up for my updates so you are first to know what's going on in my world of miniature, so you can attend my events, know about my sales, and support my efforts. So with that, and I do want to remind everybody that the chat box will be open. We're going to be taking questions periodically throughout. We may not get to every one of them, but definitely let us know what you're thinking. But with that, I want to say I am thrilled to welcome our guests from the National Museum of Toys and Miniatures in Missouri, in Kansas City, Missouri. I have been to the museum. It is an incredible museum, an extraordinary collection, probably one of the best collections on the planet of tiny treasures. And I'm so excited to have the curatorial team from the museum, Amy McKune, who is the Curator of Collections, and Dr. Madeline Rislow, Senior Manager of Learning and Engagement, here to chat with us and take us on a virtual tour of this fabulous museum. And we also have the awesome background help from Becca Boyer, who's the Senior Development Manager. She's going to be watching out for the chat box, and she's going to be managing a lot of the technology behind the scenes. So definitely say hello to those folks, thank them, and welcome you guys, because this is going to be such a wonderful treat to get a virtual tour of this fantastic museum and to see some of these beautiful, remarkable treasures and hear in depth more about them. So with that, I think we're going to chat with Amy first. Amy's going to tell us a little about herself, and then Madeline will tell us about herself, and then we are going to start the tour. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Darren. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us. We're really excited to share the museum.
Yay. Yes. Thank you.
So I have been at the National Museum of Toys and Miniatures for 5 years as the Curator of Collections, which means I'm responsible for the care and management of the collection, but also share interpretive responsibilities with Madeline. Of everybody on the panel, I actually have the longest tenure because we've had some turnover in the last couple of years. But I came from another museum where I was the director of collections. Started my career as a curator, and as I mentioned to you a little bit ago, I started my career at the museums at Stony Brook, which is now the Long Island Museum, and they used to have a set of miniature rooms. And one of my first responsibilities was to write an audio tour, if that tells you when that was.
Right. Awesome. Great. And Madeline, will you tell us about yourself as well?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm so excited to get to share our fantastic museum with Darren and with all of you. So appreciate the invitation. I have, unlike Amy, I have a little less experience at the museum. I've been in my position for 3.5 months. But as I was telling Darren right before we started, I've actually been a fan of miniatures and enthusiast for about 20 years. My first visit to the National Museum of Toys and Miniatures was 2003, I believe, if my memory serves me correct. And it is such a thrill to be able to deep dive into the collection. So I'm a trained art historian. My background, my specialty background is Italian Renaissance. And as you're going to see as we go through the tour, we have some fantastic examples of miniature objects that were inspired by that period. And I like to look at both the artistic elements of fine scale miniatures, but also think about them historically and what they can really tell us about kind of thinking about a lot of frameworks that we use in art history. And I love kind of the excitement of making the fine scale miniature world more accessible and just bringing more exposure to it, because I think there are a lot of audiences that would be excited about it. They just don't know that they'd be excited about it. So we're going to pull them in today and continue to do so. I know we've got a lot of people that have followed the miniature world a lot, many years on our tour today, but we're going to pull in even more people because everyone needs to know how great this work is.
Yeah, I just want to say, we were talking a little bit about before this started about how great it is, the work that you guys are doing to lend the credibility to the miniatures world that it deserves and that people need to see. So thank you guys for what you're doing. Thank you for being here, and also for having this fabulous, beautiful space where you house these beautiful treasures to show the world just how amazing miniatures are. So thank you.
Well, thank you. We're the ones that get to go there every day. So we like to be able to share it.
For sure. Awesome. All right. So we're going to go on a little tour of the museum. Can't wait. I saw a little preview a couple of days ago, so I'm excited to see it actually again. Can never get enough of miniatures. But yeah.
And so before we start the video, do you want me to give a little history of the museum very quickly?
Oh, perfect. Yes.
Because that part of the video is very short. So the museum was founded in 1982 by two collectors, Barbara Marshall and Mary Harris Francis. And Barbara Marshall collected miniatures. I'm sure many of you have heard of her, if not everybody. And Mary Harris Francis collected the toys. And the family story is that they got back from a trip that they had been on together, collecting trip, and they were showing the miniatures to Mary Harris's mother. And she said, if you girls buy one more thing, you're going to have to open a museum. And they looked at each other and said, well, maybe we will. So since 1982, we've had two expansions in 1989 and 2004. And then the museum was closed for 19 months and reopened in August of 2015 with new exhibits. So if it's been a long time since you've been to the museum, you need to come back, because 2015 was a pretty large change.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. Great. Okay.
And I'll just follow up on that element of just kind of thinking about the changes that have come to the museum. We're doing a lot of new programming, and we're launching. We're actually speaking to bringing new audiences in. We're launching our K through 12 programming this year. In fact, we're having a tea party next Saturday. That is an all kids fundraiser that is really going to get, we hope, a lot of excitement from a new generation of potential miniature enthusiasts. And we've got great membership benefits that are rolling out. And we just want to pull in as many people as possible into this fantastic world.
Yeah, for sure. You got to get them while they're young, get them inspired at an early age.
Mhm.
Darren, I saw a question about whether our co-founders are still living. They're unfortunately not. Mary Harris Francis passed away in 2005. Barbara Marshall just passed away last year. And because her father was the founder of Hallmark, you can actually find a memorial page to her that Hallmark has done. She retired from the museum in 2010.
Got it. Great. Okay. All right. Wow. Messages are coming through. All right, guys, keep the chat box flowing. We're monitoring them, and we'll try to get to all the questions as many of the questions as we can.
And I'll just say that if you're, since I'm popping in real quick, what you guys can do is there should be an arrow on the left side of your video that you can drag left or right to either increase the size of the speaker's video or increase the size of this video. And so you should all be ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and hit play, if that's okay, Darren.
Sounds great. Let's go.
So this is the outside of the National Museum of Toys and Miniatures. And we've come inside, and we're going to be turning around, and you'll see the museum store right there, and then our admissions counter. So this is where you would come in, and this is Michaela, one of our work study students, greeting you today. We're getting a brief glimpse of the Toytisserie, which normally turns. That was a community-based project when the museum was closed for the renovation. So now we're going to enter our fine scale miniature galleries, and what you see in front of you is our scale display. So these 4 pieces, the full scale pieces, are shown in miniature in 1/12 scale in the display case on the right. And that's how we have our visitors understand what fine scale miniatures are. So we're going to start with this harpsichord that was made by Johannes Landmann in 2004. He made this as a commission, but he decided to make 2, and he offered Barbara Marshall the right of first refusal on the other one. So she, of course, accepted. If you look at the harpsichord as we're kind of scrolling down, on either side of the keyboard are a satyr and a mermaid. And then we're going to talk a little about this carved mermaid. It's all carved out of one piece of wood. The crown was turned on a lathe, and then the rest of the figure was carved by Johannes. All the keys are independently made of ebony and ivory. The keyboard hinges are handmade. The strings are made of brass, and they're 35 thousandths of an inch in diameter, and each pin is drilled and threaded. Although sound cannot be miniaturized, the harpsichord is fully functional and would make a sound if you were to press a key. In fact, the acquisition included a turned wood tuner for the harpsichord. The painting inside the lid depicts the story of a musical contest between Apollo and Marsyas, who was considered the inventor of flute music. The story goes that he found the very first flute that had been crafted but cast away by the goddess Athena, and she had been displeased by the bloating of the cheeks when she played it, so she threw it out. Marsyas later then challenged Apollo to a musical contest, but lost when Apollo suggested they play the instruments upside down. The woods used are Costello boxwood, European boxwood, cherry, and Africa ambua.
My gosh. Oh my God. Do we know how long it took him to make this piece?
I don't know how long it took him. And I do know he made the two pieces together.
Oh,
Maybe I can look that up at some point later.
and we did have one quick question, which is the picture painted? I'm assuming that is a hand painted.
That is a hand painted piece by Johannes, yes.
Right.
So we're turning to our history of miniatures case, and we're only going to look at one object. In this case, it is a Windsor rocker, comeback Windsor rocker by Eric Pearson, who is considered by many people to be one of the first professional miniature makers. This was made in the mid 1950s. And you can see the comeback style has long vertical spindles with a straight horizontal top. And that way it looks like a hair comb, and that's where the name came from. These chairs could be considered the first ergonomic chairs of their time, with their shaped seats and their curved backs. Barbara Marshall discovered Eric Pearson's shop during a business trip to New York City. His shop was located below street level, and there was a coal chute that had been turned into a window. And Barbara remembered that she had seen that window for a year before she actually figured out how to go into the shop. But she became a big patron of Eric Pearson, and both in his shop in New York City and also once he moved upstate. And we have 348 works by Pearson in our collection.
Wow. So
we're backing away a little bit from the history of miniatures case, and we're going to be going towards the south side of the gallery. You can see the black and white Swan by Maria Jose Santos and our Russian embassy. But coming into view now is Twin Manors. This piece is called Twin Manors because William R. Robertson built two identical houses, one of which is in our collection. This does not represent a single historic house, but is rather an homage to Georgian architecture from Maine to Virginia. Robertson spent 9 years researching and building this pair of grand houses. The house has 12 main rooms, a central hall, and 2 staircases, a formal one that you'll see in the central hall, and a back staircase that is entered off the kitchen. We've seen the second floor now, so we're going to go down to the first floor. And I wanted to share a little secret that Bill has shared about the house. As we scroll over to the central hall, you'll see the newel post at the base of the grand staircase. And Bill has told us that there's a tiny deed to the house inside that newel post.
That's great.
So this house, the two houses are not furnished identically because Bill Robertson worked with Barbara Marshall to furnish the house, and many of the furnishings came from the existing collection. If you were to turn the corner around the house, you would see this window where Robertson has intentionally left the lath and plaster exposed so that you can see this is the way the house was constructed. Again, this is kind of something you have to look a little more closely to see in the house. To make the work as authentic as possible, he used wood from trees that was from the original Cherry Hill plantation, and he ground up 18th century bricks to do the brickwork, including this fireplace that you see in the kitchen. You'll see to the left, there's a working clock jack, and that would actually turn the spit in the fireplace. And then on the bottom right is another comb-back Windsor chair by Eric Pearson. You can see this one doesn't have the extended comb to it. We're walking towards Boston Beacon Hill, which was done by Frank Matter in 1/48 scale. When we acquired the house, Bill Robertson renovated it and discovered a real treasure trove of unbelievable craftsmanship, including a functional teapot the size of a pencil eraser, and this tall case clock that ran on the world's smallest mechanical watch movement at the time. And I don't know if there's been one that's been made since that's smaller. Probably not, because we've gone so digital. This was commissioned by Claire Bagley Hammonds, And she described the house as an attempt to reproduce in miniature outstanding features of some of the beautiful old mansions of New England. Her family was from Massachusetts, so you can see some portraits in the house, and those are actually Claire Bagley Hammond's family members that are portrayed in the house.
That's great.
Most of the silk petit-point rugs are made by Ethel Forbes Harding, but also Mrs. Hammond's made some rugs using the French knot technique to look like hooked rugs. Specific rooms are based on different houses. For example, this second floor bedroom is based on one by Samuel McIntyre for Captain Nathaniel West. And as we go down to the first floor in a second, the dining room is from the first Harrison Gray Otis house in Boston. And the lower hall and staircase are from the John Pierce home in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. As part of the restoration project, Nell Corkin refreshed and enhanced the table arrangements and the garden flowers. The museum acquired the work from Mrs. Hammond's niece, who shared that the house had its own traveling case that looked much like a sewing machine case, where it had a base and then a top went over it. And she had that so she could travel with the house on the train. So she did share this with a lot of people during the time she owned it.
That's crazy. Amy, can you take a second just to tell us, I mean, I'm looking at this as what, 1/48 scale?
Yes.
The level of difficulty just to create 1/12, but then you're moving down to this smaller scale and it's looking just incredible. Like, I mean, can you tell us just the level of difficulty to create in that scale?
Well, I wish I could tell you the level of difficulty. I had my first experience making miniatures at Guild School this year, and I made miniature books with Tina Kreinen, and it was great fun. This would just be an incredible thing to do. And if you think about, some of our pieces are even 1/144 scale. For example, all of the work that we have by Nell Corkin. So I can't, unfortunately, as the curator of collections, I can't necessarily understand exactly how they can do things that are that intricate.
Yeah, but it sounds like you got to see it firsthand, just how difficult it was working in 12 scale. Could you imagine making those books even smaller?
I cannot. They were small enough.
So Benny has a question, and it's gone. Oh no, when the house traveled as the furniture, was it packed away? Was everything glued down, or does everything come out?
I believe a lot of it, I think it was glued down, but it was in a condition when the museum acquired it that it really needed extensive conservation. I've never seen pictures of what it looked like at that time, but William Robertson says it was all glued down, and he did the conservation, so he's gonna know.
Wow, that's so scary. Okay.
Thanks, Bill, for being on the call.
Everything is glued down. Wow. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing the difference between the 12 scale and the smaller scale, because it's hard for people to actually see.
Right.
But yeah, that's great.
I'm going to actually turn it over to Madeline for the next section.
Yeah, so we're actually traveling around kind of back to the entrance of the galleries for the fine scale miniatures again. And we're gonna look at my favorite piece. I love this work. It's a box room. It's about 15 by 13 inches. We're going back to 1/12 scale though. It's not the 1/48. But still challenging, right? So this is a work that was done by 4 different artists. Barry Hipwell did the walls they're intarsia inlaid wood. Ursula Derby Skovstad did the ceiling, which is coffered and has gold on it, which is just, I always love to think about like the lighting in all of these spaces. You think about the reflection and everything. Nick Stowe did the floor, and then Johannes Landman, who we've already talked about, Amy talked a little bit about him with the harpsichord, actually did the paintings on the wall. And I love this because it is an Italian Renaissance inspiration piece, the Studiolo Gubbio. Barbara Marshall actually commissioned it in 2004. And like what happened in the Renaissance, when this was actually like the inspiration piece actually made in the late 15th century, when this was made, multiple people were involved in it. So it's really fun to kind of see the way that fine scale miniaturists are echoing even like the process of like the workload distribution, if you will. This is a space that was a study in the Renaissance. And this is what I love about it. It was a study, but also, and Becca, I'm gonna have you pause for just a moment here so I can talk a little bit about the space itself. The space was a study for reflection. So the images are all about collecting and humanistic values and talking about the ways in which the framework in which you should be thinking about the patron, who is Federico De Montefeltero, a duke in Urbino, Italy. And I like to think about this as like an Italian Renaissance man cave, honestly, because the walls that were designed by Barry Hipwell in our case were actually cupboards that you would open up and you would have little treasures inside of them, like tiny things. So it's kind of like the miniaturist version that we have today, but it's like the Italian Renaissance version of it. So I love that you come into the museum and you get this kind of microcosm of what collecting is all about and the ways in which we think about that when you first walk in. It sets this great framework for walking through the rest of the space and thinking about the ways in which your collections say things about you. I love it. So we can keep going a bit here. Now, the paintings that you see up here, these Johannes Landmann paintings, are kind of great because he actually got to be a little bit creative when he did these. Only 2 of what would have originally been 7 paintings in this room are extant. And Becca, if you can pause again for a moment, I'm waxing poetic about things that are going faster than the speed of the video, or I'm going slower than the speed of the video. Darren, forgive me as I get excited about them again. But he got to be creative here because, again, only 2 of the paintings still exist. We had 4 of them up until World War II, and then they were in a museum in Berlin that was destroyed. And so he worked off of a couple of black and white photos, and then he had 2 originals, but he actually got to kind of be creative and kind of think about, okay, well, what would the other one look like that is visible in this image, which is fantastic. You can keep going, Becca. We'll scroll back up to the wonderful coffered ceiling. So you can see the detail that Ursula Derby Skobstad did with that. And that I love all of the gold reflection throughout the space. It makes all of it feel special. So we all think about miniatures as these special objects, and everything about this space is telling us that we really do need to value the objects. I mean, isn't that is just an incredible, the detail, the level of detail here on the ceiling is just astounding.
It's crazy. It's crazy. We did get a question of what does the what is being said along the wall? Do we know what it reads?
So, yeah, that's a great question. So it's essentially in Latin is telling us, and Becca, if you could pause so I can talk about this image that's appearing here for just a second. It is actually extolling the virtues of Federico De Montefeltero. It's telling everyone he's so great. And this was his private space. So the owner of this space, it's a proclamation of his awesomeness, more or less. And he would invite people into this space. It was invitation only. And he would bring them in and they would see all of this great imagery. And then he would, and you'll see like the walls they're trompe l'oeil, it's fool the eye. They're actually flat, but they look like they're open cupboard doors, which is so fun. And then he would actually then open the cupboard doors and then take out the tiny objects. So there's like multiple levels of shock and awe, if you will, in these spaces. And so it's really augmenting him, which is also what's happening in this cupboard image that we're looking at. Becca, you can restart the video scroll here, because there's actually a parakeet in a cage on that wall. I don't know if everyone could see it, like the cage markings on there. And that's something that Barbara actually switched. It's actually supposed to be on the opposite wall. but she loved that image so much, which is a marker of prestige again, because those, you couldn't get parakeets everywhere. So it's kind of special that Federico De Montefeltero had one. And so we got to highlight that. And Barbara liked it so much that let's make sure it's visible in the room. So I love that image too, because it kind of speaks to Barbara's relationship with the artists.
So just conceptually, was this Barbara Marshall's idea? Like, where did this come from to do this?
Well, I mean, as I understand it, she would approach the artists and really ask them, and Amy can correct me for this particular one, but ask them if I'm wrong here, but ask them what they always wanted to create, and then provide them with the opportunity to really do that, which is just fantastic. And then allow them the space and time to be able to kind of achieve the remarkable works, many of which are in our collection today.
Wow. And I would imagine she had the artists in mind that she wanted to work on these pieces and brought them into the projects. And I would imagine Johann would be the big piece of this. I don't know. But
well, actually, Bill Robertson is letting us know. Barry Hippel is the one, he wanted to do this room. And then it looks like Bill Robertson actually told Barbara about it. So
who's Barry? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Barry Hipwell, who did the wall in Tarsia, told Bill Robertson he was interested in doing it. So and there's a comment too that the Met has a Renaissance room like this. Actually, the Met has this room today. It doesn't exist in Italy anymore. They literally took it out of the palazzo there, and it's in New York today.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness, that's fabulous. Wow. Okay. I can't breathe.
Oh, I know, it's remarkable, and every day I get to walk by it. It's thrilling.
Does the Met know about this? I mean, I don't know. I would love for them to know.
I assume so, because as Bill Robertson is also telling us, they all met
in the Met to sign.
Met
Oh,
so the agreement. So
all right. Okay. All right. Wow. That's great. Oh my goodness, that's fabulous.
I know, I love it.
It's just crazy. All right.
And so speaking of things that contain things, we're going to look at another inspiration piece from medieval Renaissance times, but this little box that's on the second shelf from the bottom, it's called a Cassone. These were wedding chests. So you might think of them as like equivalent to dowry chests, but they were commissioned at the time someone would get married, and they had painted imagery on it. This one is done by Natasha Beshankowski. And she did this in 1981. She did not do it for Barbara Marshall. This was a later purchase. It was actually a commission, a special work done for Carolyn Sunstein, who started the Philadelphia Miniature Show and ran it for 20 years. And then the museum acquired it in 2010. So I kind of love it because you can see her initials are actually on the sides, the CS on the sides of the Cassone. And in the medieval and Renaissance times, those panels were where you would put, like, the couple that was getting married, their coats of arms would be on the side. So it's a really fun way to modernize it. And then it's also a really fun way for us to kind of continue to document the history of the miniature world as we acquire things that were important to different collectors too, and kind of have a dialogue in place. And there you see Natasha's signature on the bottom, so great. And it also, even though we don't have it displayed open, it does even have the detail. I love this too, because you think about the fact that miniature artists do all the details in all the places, even if you can't see them. And so this is just a great example of that. We don't have it displayed with it open, because otherwise you couldn't see the top of the chest. But that doesn't mean Natasha is not going to put all the elements like they would have been at the time of the inspiration piece. Love it. Yeah.
Wow. It's just awesome. Just awesome.
Yeah, really. And again, that like level of detail. Now we're going to kind of swoop around here, and you're going to see things that we're not going to stop and check out. We're not going into the French gallery. You're going to have to come and actually visit us in person to see the details of that. Or Darren will have to invite us back. I guess we'll see.
For sure.
And I'm going to turn it back over to Amy to take us through what's known as the Masterpiece Gallery.
Beautiful.
Right, so we're walking toward our masterpiece gallery, and this was designed to be kind of a combination of bank vault and jewelry store. And when the video gets into it, you'll see that it's very successful doing that. Barbara Marshall personally picked every piece that is in the masterpiece gallery. We're going to only look at 2 pieces today. We had to make some choices. So the first one is this Queen Anne style secretary made by Frank Early around 1924. As you're looking at this image, Becca, can you pause for a minute? Let's use the word pause. There are pilasters that you can see in the top section. So there are some shorter ones below and a taller one above. And then there's an ivory cabinet right there. And remember those because they'll be important for a photo that comes up in a minute. Becky, we could go on. The secretary was constructed of oak using only hand tools, veneered with burled walnut, and features inlaid sunburst designs. And we'll see the sunburst design in ebony and holly at the bottom here. The smallest inlaid pieces are 5/1000ths of an inch. The drawers are all dovetail jointed and the lock is functional. The interior of the secretary is detailed in ivory, as you saw from that paused photo. But what I want to talk about now is it contained 19 secret compartments. So you would actually depress a latch on the base of the lower center pilaster, which would release it. And then 2 levers connected to weights unlatch the other lower pilasters, releasing in turn the 3 upper pilasters. So that's how those pieces came off. And then in the desk section, the ivory trimmed cabinet had to be removed to reveal the hidden compartments. And that little ivory keystone at the top had to be lifted in order to be able to remove the cabinet. And then thread handles connected to a series of dovetailed boxes. And you'll see those all around the front of the photograph. And adding everything together, that's 19 secret compartments for this piece. And we wanted to also show you that in one of the compartments, there were 2 hand-painted postcards that were discovered, and they're here with the piece.
Oh my goodness. That's just crazy.
So now we're going to look at a jardiniere or Art Nouveau planter by Linda Laroche. It's based on a piece called Flora Marina, Flora Exotica by Émile Gallé. The original full-size piece was exhibited at the 1889 Paris Exposition and is now in the Musée de l'École de Nancy, a museum founded in 1901 in northeastern France by Gallé and other Art Nouveau artists. Madeline already mentioned this, but I'm going to tell you that Barbara Marshall often commissioned work from artists, encouraging them to make the thing they had always wanted to make, and then she would purchase that. She would support it. This particular commission was originally discussed in 1984. It was agreed upon in 1986, and Mrs. Marshall had it presented to her in 1998, so 14 years after the original discussion. This plum wood casket is covered in marquetry, and it fits together like a puzzle. All the colors are natural wood colors. Laroche was drawn to this piece because of the Art Nouveau style, the asymmetric design, and that it was covered with fantastic and exotic plants and animals. And we can just look and see some of the detail here. And when we get to the next photo, look closely at the right side, and I'll tell you when. Right now, there's a piece of lead. So this was a planter, so it would have had to have been lead lined, so it would be watertight. And to do this, Laroche cut empty paint tubes apart for the lead. So really showing the inventiveness of miniature artists to think about, what's really going to work for their piece. We're seeing the rest of the masterpiece gallery, but we're going to keep going. And work our way toward in the artist studio, and I'm going to turn it over to Madeline again.
So in the artist studio, which we're approaching right now, is a space that was designed and actually installed in the museum during the renovations in 2014-15, after we heard back from visitors who, especially those who had no experience prior to visiting us, what is it like to make? How do you make these fine scale miniatures? What's the process? What kind of tools do you use? And so this room is really intended as a space for learning and really thinking about how the things that are outside of the room, how do they actually get made? And so you can see different tools that are made and different processes for different parts of a lot of the elements. And we had two artists, Bill Robertson and then also Leanne Cellist Wessel, do some demonstration videos and share some works with us. And we're going to zoom in on two of the works that Leanne Cellist Wessel actually did for us to show this process. So this is an egg tempera painting inspired by a Sandra Botticelli work that because it's done with egg tempera, so you're mixing your pigments with egg yolk, there's a particular process. And I kind of like love this as we kind of scroll across this, because what you're going to see is that the base of the skin tone is actually green. It's terra verde. And it's so fascinating to me. I love that she shows this process of layering, because this is what they would do in the Renaissance, especially to get the skin tones the way that they wanted them to. But if you go to an art museum today and walk through the Renaissance galleries, some of the figures look sickly because the paint has worn away and changed a bit. And it's because of this, it's because of the process. And so this is just a fantastic display that really shows that process and like why it looks like that, right? And then she also did these Maiolica dishes, a series of them to show you how these are decorated. And these were precious objects. The inspiration behind them are these precious objects that were very dominant in the Italian Renaissance as a process and way of display. And you would do all of these layers of decoration on this white surface to try to get these vibrant colors. And that's what they were really drawn to, were these vibrant colors. And they might do historical scenes, they might do decorative designs, they might put their family heraldic arms on these. And they're so immersive. Like I like to think about, even though we don't let people touch the miniatures, I like to think about the, like you see in the video, Leanne actually like holding the objects, right? And thinking about the scale and the actual tactile quality of them. In the Renaissance, these would have been passed around at elaborate dinners, and you imagine them like filled with food, and that they aren't actually, the imagery isn't actually revealed until the diners have actually scooped the food out, take it out. So it's like that process again of the image changes as you actually engage with it. And that's what I really love. It's not just this thing that sits there on the wall or on a shelf. It's an object that can really come to life when you understand more about it, and also understand more about the processes that are involved in the miniature artist's hand as they're learning how their inspiration pieces were made and used. We're going to kind of just tuck in here and just take a quick look at our micro curiosities section. And not really go in there. It's another enticement. Come and see us if you want to see more of that. And I'm gonna hand it back over to Amy to actually take us through new acquisitions.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so this is our new acquisitions case. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the museum's collecting. So Barbara Marshall did all of our collecting until she retired in 2010. And the museum didn't really actively purchase much between 2010 and 2017. But at that point, we had Miniature Masterworks. Some of you might know about it. I know Darren attended. I had been at the museum for 6 weeks, so I was there. We are going to do it again in 2024, September 2024. When we collect, we try to collect miniatures that we think Barbara Marshall would have wanted to collect when she was doing so. So I'm going to talk about two artists. This first piece is a sailor's Valentine entitled Two Hearts by Peter Gable. This work was acquired at Miniature Masterworks in 2017 and was the first work by Peter that entered the collection. He specializes in working with shells. And for this piece, he provided us with two legends to show what the individual shells are. And you might ask, why two legends? Well, there's so many shells in this, so many different shells, that there's a legend for the inner circle and there's a legend for the outer rim area. So the center has two heart cockles with 3 star sands, and they're framed by an abalone veneer with a circle of Mongo snail shells. And then we're going to, after we get a really good look at this, we're going to zoom out and see the outer ring, which includes 8 half moons. The dark blue half moons are cerithium shells. The lighter green are made from knobby green sea urchin spines. Next to that are orange cone shells. And the final half moons are turbo shells. So those are ones that are kind of white and brown. The brown pieces that you can see between the half moons are brown scallops.
Amy, what's the size of this piece?
This is 112, and I did see a picture about that, or a question about that earlier. Pretty much everything we're showing is 112 unless we say it's not.
And just, I mean, I didn't see it scaled up. How big is it in real life?
It's about 2.5 inches.
2.5 inches. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's quite.
That includes the shell on the outside?
Yes, that includes, yeah, it's all in that wood case.
Is the wood case 2.5 inches or the whole piece?
The wood case.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're now looking back at our new acquisitions case. And again, you can see all these wonderful things that we've acquired, but unfortunately we don't have time to talk about all of them. So I'm going to talk about this Paola low board that's going to come up now. This mid-century modern low board was made of teak by artist Fernando Setien, and we first encountered him in Chicago in 2018. This is based on a 1959 design by Belgian artist Oswald Vermeck. In 1959, Princess Rufo de Calabria married Prince Albert of Belgium, and she became Queen Paola. And so that's this piece, the Paola low board, was built to honor that new Queen of Belgium. In order to use properly sized wood grain, Setien actually makes his own wood panels that he then uses to build all of his furniture. Fernando Setien started working in miniatures after Barbara Marshall's retirement in 2010. So this is the first work that TM acquired for the collection. But you can see how, it displays all these very obvious mid-century modern features like the tapered legs. And then Becca, when she did the video, wanted to show you this third window. And unfortunately, I'm not talking about anything in there, but it does have a wonderful piece by Althea Chrome and several other wonderful pieces you'll need to come and see.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to the American Architects Classroom by Bill Robertson. This is circa 1900. He finished it in 1993.
Wow.
This is what ushers visitors into our miniature maze. And I've shown this to architects, and even those that weren't in school in 1900 just are mesmerized by this piece. It just reminds them so much of their own architecture classrooms. Bill used catalogs of the period to design the furnishings, and everything is, of course, functional. You can see this room from two sides, and what's going to come into view on the right side is a circa 1906 blueprint maker with automatic washing box and drying rack. And it's by the window because it would be on a track that it could be put into the sunlight through the open window, and that would develop the print. Just like a functional full-size architect's classroom, there are a series of architectural models on the far side of the room. And some of the framed architectural prints are original hand-colored steel lithographs from the 1850s. Others are reproductions, but Bill framed and glazed them all. He made all but 3 pieces in this room, 2 chairs and a tiny Victorian house. Everything else is Bill Robertson. If you looked up, and I may have not allowed you to see that scene, Becca, can you go back just a tiny bit to the overall image? Right there. If you look up, this house or this room has its very own sprinkler system, which is designed after the Frederick Grinnell patent of 1892-93. And you can keep going, Becca. Thank you. So Bill Robertson's fondness for antique tools is quite evident as you look through this room. And we're going to be kind of scanning around the room, but we're going to go to one of the pieces that there are so many wonderful features, but one of the things that I really enjoy are that there are 3 wire mesh wastebaskets that you can see here. They contain, each one contains 1,020 solder joints, and they're even filled with paper, with scrap paper. We're going to leave the architect's classroom because we're doing this quickly and go to the William Martin House breakfast room. Guess we're still in the architect's classroom. Here we go. So artists Allison Ashby and Steve Jedd created this 1/12 scale replica of the breakfast room of the William Martin House in Chicago. They were the first artists when I arrived at the museum 5 years ago who described to me this process of, you know, we met Barbara Marshall in Chicago. She loved our work and she asked us to make a piece, and they didn't know what piece to make. She had purchased another piece from them, but they didn't know what piece to make. So Steve was actually a carpenter, and he was hired to do some work on the full-size William Martin House, and walked into the breakfast room and just knew this was the piece that they were going to do for the museum. Frank Lloyd Wright is well known for designing everything in his rooms, the room and the furnishings. And Ashby and Jedd included all of these details in this really engaging miniature room.
Oh my
And
God.
we're backing out of this room now, and we're going to look across the hall, the miniature maze, at our final piece. This is the Art Deco jewelry store. And we're making this the final piece because this was the last commission made by Barbara Marshall. It's by Kevin Mulvaney and Susie Rogers. And they did an interesting thing. They turned the question around on Barbara Marshall of what they had always wanted to make and said, what have you always wanted to have? And she said a jewelry store. And there was a very specific 2 large but somewhat narrow space. And so they made a 2-story structure. There are several architectural inspirations for this piece. The ocean liner Normandy, the Netherland Plaza Hotel in Cincinnati, and Neiman Marcus store in Chicago. The Chrysler Building in New York City, the interior of the elevators are based on that. Mulvaney and Rogers worked with several other artists to create this grand room. And very soon we will see the chandelier, which was beaded by, there it is right there, by British artist Robert Ward. And this includes 15,800 beads. We haven't counted them. We took the word of the artist on that one. And then there are 3 figures in the room made of porcelain by Maria Jose Santos of Spain. A shopkeeper displays a ruby necklace to a woman in a stylish green suit with a fur stole. And the gentleman accompanying her actually holds a newspaper with the headline, Lindbergh Does It. When Maria Jose Santos learned that Mulvaney and Rogers wanted the room to be lit at twilight, she added a 5 o'clock shadow to the men's cheeks. So every little detail has so much attention that's paid to it. And then finally, we're going to look at the jewelry in the room. This was made by Canadian artist Lori Ann Potts. And what you see is an octagonal counter with about 45 pieces of jewelry, all made with precious and semi-precious stones. So we're going to stop here. We've given you this view, and now we want to give you time to ask questions.
Oh my goodness, that's just crazy. I do have a question actually about you mentioned that now that Barbara Marshall is no longer with us, but you are now, acquiring pieces, you think about what she would have chosen. What are some of the things that you think about when you think about her and choosing what to bring in?
Well, we have definitely purchased some things from artists that she collected from. So we know for sure that she was a big fan of their work, but we're really looking, everything we collect, we are supposed to be considering what is the quality of someone who's a member of IGMA, the International Guild of Miniature Artisans. And so we're looking for that kind of very top quality of fine scale miniature. We also are very lucky. We have a collections committee that includes family members of our co-founders, and Margaret Silva, who is Barbara Marshall's daughter, is the chair of that committee. Oh. And so when I get Barbara to say, yes, Amy, then I know that we've really done the right thing and chosen the right works.
Awesome. All right, let's see if there's any other questions. If your museum is burgled, it was me, Faith Miller. Let's see. Do you guys have any other questions? Lots of kudos to Bill Robertson, of course. Yes. And I guess I had another question. So that new acquisitions portion, that I don't want to call it box or
case,
does that get turned over, and how often?
That's a great question. It's right now it has pieces from 2017 through 2019, but it hasn't been changed in a couple of years. COVID kind of affected a lot of things, but we are getting ready to change it to a new set of objects, those that were acquired from 2019 through this year, actually 2022, because we did go to Chicago this year and acquire some pieces. So I'm not sure quite of the timing, but it'll probably be within the next 3 to 4 months. It will change. So awesome. You need to rush in if you want to see those pieces. In that case, we'll try to incorporate some of those pieces throughout the rest of the miniature galleries.
Okay. I'm going to have one more question. Well, no, let's take one from folks. Barry wants to know, how many houses do you have at the museum, and what is the oldest? It's a good question.
Oh gosh, Bill's still on the call. Maybe he can help with that answer. How many houses? I'm thinking that there are about somewhere between 10 and 12 that were on exhibit that are actually houses. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how many in the collection. We have about 48% of our collection on display, and a lot of the larger scale pieces are, but I can think of at least 1 or 2 that are not on display. We also have miniature rooms, and we have a lot more of those than we have houses.
Right.
The oldest piece, that's, has Bill answered that question? Because he may know. I'm afraid I don't know.
He did answer the question about how many houses we have. He just said lots.
Lots.
Good answer.
So
wow.
We do, I will share something I wasn't going to share. We did actually just acquire a thorn room from the first set.
We're hearing it first here now.
And the reason I wasn't going to announce it is, I'm sorry, it's not on display yet, but we are going to be undergoing some renovations over the next year. And so it should be on display by the summer of 2023. And we had this, when it came up in Chicago, we had it thoroughly researched by McKenne Morgan, who used to be at the Art Institute. And it's the English Cotswold Cottage from the first set. And it was exhibited by IBM, was the last time we were aware it was exhibited in the 1940s. It's in a 1946 catalog. And then it didn't show up again until 2019 when it showed up in a North Shore estate. So it probably is the oldest room that we have in the collection, but it's just not on display quite yet.
And that'll be your first thorn room that you've
absolutely. It'll be our first thorn room.
Wow.
Sets 2 and 3 are at the Art Institute of Chicago. Set 1 is split between the Phoenix Museum of Art and Knoxville,
Right.
Tennessee. And it was thought that a lot of the other most of the other rooms were no longer extant, that they had been deconstructed. And so it was quite the surprise to find this room.
Wow.
And we feel really, really lucky that we were able to acquire it.
Wow. And when do you think it'll be on display?
Summer of 2023.
2023. Okay.
It's going to take a bit.
Heard it here, but I mean, I think that's a great goal, because that's when is Miniature Masterworks? Also 2023?
It's in September of 2024. So it'll be there in plenty of time. It's actually going to be on display close to our History of Miniatures case. So it involves some significant construction into basically taking up part of a cleaning closet to make it fit in the place where it's going to be best interpreted.
Oh my God. Well, that's great information. Yeah.
And I was just gonna jump in quick and just encourage everyone to follow us on social media, because we will be keeping everyone updated minute to minute as to when that is actually going to be on view. So that's a great way to know exactly when to time your trip.
For sure. And, this has just been a taste of everything that you guys have, the extraordinary museum with an extraordinary collection. I just want to thank you guys so much for giving us this wonderful tour and giving us the inspiration to put it on our calendars to visit often, because you need to spend a lot of time to look at all these wonderful treasures. So thank you, Amy. Thank you, Dr. Rislow. Thank you, Becca, behind the scenes. Thank you all at home for watching and participating in your questions. And guys, this has been just an extraordinary treat. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. And thank you for joining this very special Meet the Miniaturist. Guys, take care.